Welcome to the 902 Podcast, the official podcast of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Captain John Vick, and I want to thank you for listening. This podcast will give you an inside look at LSO with topics and guests to discuss public safety issues impacting Lancaster County. Be sure to subscribe for highlights on news, cases, and the people working for you at LSO. You can also follow us across social media at LSO Nebraska on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Welcome to the 902 Podcast. We are here in studio today with Sheriff Wagner, Chief Deputy Ben Houchin. Thanks for being here, guys.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
We're talking about facilities at LSO in this episode, and to do that, we kind of have to start at the beginning, but then we'll come back around to, you know, what our facilities are like today and maybe some of our future plans. But Sheriff, if we could, let's start way back when the Sheriff's Office started. Not that you were here then.
I was going to say, what makes you think I would know that?
No.
You're the closest one to it.
But we had a Sheriff's Office before we had a Sheriff's Office. And I guess back in the early days, they had to do it out of their house.
I think they did, and then they just had a little jail someplace close to wherever the court was to take people to court if they needed to go to court.
Right. So a lot of this, we're pulling this out of one of our history books that we had some staff put together back in our 150th anniversary back in 2011. But one of the things that that it says out of there is that they worked out of their home or place of business and just used whatever facility was available. So apparently there was reports of prisoners being kept in a milk house in the Haymarket until they could see a judge. And then it was in 1874 that they actually built the first jail.
Right.
So that was at the corner of 10th and K.
Correct.
And I'm trying to picture what's there today. That's just the parking garage?
No, that's the corner of the county city building.
Oh, okay. So that is on this corner.
Well, yeah, that's 10th and K is that entire.
Okay, so it's still on the original footprint of the campus that we're on today.
It was on the
southwest
corner of the intersection. Yes.
Okay. We've got some pictures here, so I'm just trying to picture this in my head. But so they had a jail for a little bit, and then it sounds like they didn't actually build a formal courthouse to go along with it until 1888. And that lasted us really for the most part all the way up to the 1960s with when they did a remodel of what we know today as the current Hall of Justice and courthouse. Is that right?
No, that's when this building was built.
Right.
It was 1968.
Okay.
So on the I thought it was 9th and K, but it says 10th and K. So doesn't matter. The sheriff's office and the jail was on the north portion of this block that we're in now.
Okay.
My understanding is the sheriff lived upstairs.
On premises, lived
in the building. His wife cooked for the prisoners and did their laundry. And that's pretty common with sheriff's offices across the state. I mean, up until recently, there were some sheriffs who still lived in quarters that were attached to the jail. They responded to any kind of disturbances in the jail. They answered the telephone, and some of them even acted as an after-hours dispatch for their employees if they had any out. So in the mid '60s, I guess. And we've got some pictures here of the interior of that old jail, and it was really an old jail. I mean, it was really pretty dank. The city and the county went together and built this building, which at the time was the county city building, and it housed all of county and city government, including the police department, up to the mayor's office on the city side, and the sheriff's office up to the county board and the courts on the county side.
Okay.
So one half the building was city, one half was county.
So at that point, the courthouse was still in its original courthouse north of here.
Yeah, it got demolished.
Okay.
When this building was completed and occupied, that building was demolished and became a parking lot.
Okay. I think we'll post some of these pictures online now, but I think I'm seeing the aerial view on that next page that kind of shows.
Sure.
So that footprint of the original county city building with the old courthouse next to it.
And then on the far lower right
Is
of
where
that,
the jail
that's
was.
the jail. So
Okay.
the jail was not connected to the courthouse.
Okay.
They had to walk prisoners out of the jail and into the courthouse for court. So the pictures that you see of Sheriff Carnop walking Charlie Starkweather, they had to walk them outside to get to court.
Right.
What a security nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, when you compare the volume that jail could hold then all the way up to the mid 60s, compared to the size of facility that the adult detention facility is today.
I'm not sure what precipitated it, but when we moved into the county city building, on the north half of the basement was the new jail, and it was run by the city.
Okay.
And I don't know, like I said, I don't know what precipitated that or how that arrangement or agreement came about. So when I started here, the city ran the jail, and it was on the north half of this building.
Okay.
And it was that way until about 1981.
Okay.
And then the county had already taken it back over. LPD had moved out of this building because they needed more room and moved to 10th and M. And the jail occupied what was formerly some of LPD's space downstairs. And the county hired a jail administrator. And it went that way until, like I said, 1981, until they built the 605 building, the building south of us, which was the new jail in 1981, and that lasted until the West O jail was built in 2000 and
Gosh, would have been ery 2000s.
15.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking
probably-
2015, maybe.
I think it was even before that.
Was it?
Yeah. But safe to say though that the sheriff's office, as far as the administrative offices from our organization, have really been on this campus since the late 1800s.
That's correct.
Yeah. So
1875.
before cars, we've been
Before cars.
We've been here at the block that we're on.
Correct.
So yeah.
Yeah, this was, between here and the Capitol was the core of the city.
Yeah.
And so that's just the way it was.
Interesting to think about. So in the 90s, late 90s, 97 to 99, there was a renovation though of this building. And is that when the current county city building was built then as well?
Okay, so let's just back up for a minute. The sheriff's office started, getting tight for space as well. Just
Probably a lot of offices.
a lot of offices did, and
agencies,
people
yeah.
started moving out of this building into other facilities. It was in the early 70s when the sheriff's office rented a space just south of O Street, 300 South Coddington,
Okay.
and that was a locker room for our patrol deputies,
Yep.
a maintenance facility for our patrol cars,
Okay.
and it was also a landing pad for our helicopter, which we had at the time.
Sure.
And we kept that facility until about 1984.
Okay.
So in 1994, when I took office, the county was already looking at the potential for remodeling this building. It virtually had very little non-criminal justice government offices in the building. The county attorney was still here. The public defender was still here. The courts were all here. We were here. So in 1994, they commissioned a space needs analysis, and it took a couple of years to decide what was going to happen. And we were involved in the planning stages of this building, and it was decided that this current building would become the Justice and Law Enforcement Center. We call it the Hall of Justice, but only criminal justice agencies would be in this building. And so that's what it's been for the last 25 years.
Right.
Sheriff, police, county, district, and juvenile courts, county attorney. clerk of the district court. That's about the only agencies I can think of that have been in this building. And now we have a non-criminal justice agency in this building on the 4th floor, which is the Human Resources Department.
Yeah, at least temporarily.
Yeah,
At least temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some room for expansion if the courts should expand.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're correct. In 1997, the building to the north of us, now the county city building, was constructed, and all of the non-criminal justice agencies returned to that building. Now, since then, we've started migrating
expanding again,
and migrating to off-site locations. But that was the plan for that building. That's the way it stood. And then like I said, the jail was built in 1981 and vacated in the mid-2000s. That has been repurposed into office space and connected to this building via skywalks. So, the footprint of criminal justice agencies has expanded, as has the rest of local government. So the goal was to keep local government all contained so that it's easy for people to find where they need to go. And,
consolidated.
Yeah. So this building was vacated in 1997, and we moved back in November of 1999.
So during that time that this was vacated, we couldn't just go back to sheriffing out of our houses.
Right.
You mentioned 300 South Coddington.
Okay. We had already vacated that.
And so that had been gone. Was our Cherry Creek facility open at that point?
No, we rented a facility at 1000 Oak.
Okay.
And it was a new building that had just been built. We kind of had it configured internally for our patrol division. And so our patrol division moved out there. We had a property room out there.
A weight room was out
A
there.
little weight room.
The polygraph room was out there.
Okay.
I remember, yeah.
And then we had the courts all moved to the old federal building
Okay.
down on between 9th and 10th O to P. And so we had a number of our deputies that were assigned court security and prisoner transportation down there. We also had deputies assigned to Trabert Hall, which was the old nurses' dormitory at the original St. Elizabeth Hospital at 10th and South.
And that was
Okay.
for juvenile court.
And so juvenile court was there.
Wow.
And we had deputies that went to work there providing security for juvenile court. 46R had been built. So we had a couple of deputies out there for title inspections, as well as having, our narcotics off-site. And did we have any other off-sites by that time? I think we had deputies at about 5 different locations. It was really, and our main office was located in Gold's Galleria on 11th and N. And so that's where our main headquarters was at. And we were there for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a challenge, especially like parking and all that
Oh, yeah.
stuff, and trying to get when you go to
Meetings
court.
or, yeah.
You're just, and you didn't see everybody like the patrol division. You just saw the people at that. Now, sometimes you would turn in reports and things, but it isn't what it is now.
So there was a picture we put on social media recently, and it was, I think, of your second shift around that time, and just before you became sheriff.
Right.
Ben, you were on that shift.
Yes.
So was the patrol division out at Cherry Creek for a little while?
Yeah, we had a little, it was that little locker room.
We had a
place.
little locker room. So I believe it was after 1000 Oak.
No, it was before. We were out there.
Oh, that's
before.
right. It was because the county engineer moved out there, and we kind of we were in a what is now a large conference room.
Oh, so just
We had a locker room in there, and that's where we conducted our shift briefings, our lineups. There was a small weight room there, and so our patrol guys went to work out there. That's right. We had to vacate that.
Yep.
And then
That's when we went out to Oak.
that's when we went out to Oak. So it's 1984 we moved out to 444 Cherry Creek, and 1995, I believe,
okay.
when we got 1997.
Yep.
When we got 1000 Oak.
So the late 90s, early 2000s, we've got this nice, shiny, renovated building here in the middle of everything. We've got everybody together. and then it floods.
That was 2005.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a water main at the very front of the building on the 10th Street side. Somehow it had gotten weakened.
Wasn't it the flag doing something and kept vibrating?
Well,
and
I think the footings for the flagpole, when they dug down for the footings for the flagpole base, they
put them too close to the
put
main.
them too close and perhaps, cracked a pipe.
Hate to be the guy that drew that up.
And so, the ground floor of this building had, a couple feet of water in it.
Yeah.
All the elevator shafts were flooded, because they were full.
Yeah.
To they're almost a floor below
Sure.
where all the motors and all of the mechanical parts are. So those, and of course, by this time, those things are put here in 67. It's 2005. So they all had to be taken out individually and cleaned and rebuilt and brought back, and they're huge motors. So we didn't have elevators in this building for a while. Courts literally shut down, just because we didn't have heating, air conditioning. I think we had ran portable generators for electricity because the electrical panel was really close to where the flood started, and blew it up, and so it was pretty catastrophic.
One thing we found out, we don't have very many drains in the floor in this building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so we were squeegeeing water out the doors.
Oh my goodness.
it was a mess.
It was a mess.
I just gotten promoted, and I was in charge of courts. And I was just like, you got to be kidding. Wow. Yeah, it was a mess.
Wow.
And I think we held court in the law college
Yes.
and in the bar building, the Lincoln Bar Association building, or was it the old Fed?
I know we did it some, like you said, at UNL.
Yeah.
A lot of it was out there because we were grabbing portables or the metal detectors
Right.
and doing all that stuff there. I can't remember where else we did it, but we had a couple of places.
And I'm trying to think, thankfully the weather was not inclement. I mean, it wasn't super cold. And, we had real high humidity. You can imagine with that much water in the building, the drywall got soaked 3 feet up. And so the humidity in the building was sky high and no air handling systems going at all. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a mess.
Wow.
Because we moved criminal up to the classrooms, I think A. And I mean, it was just...
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was just whatever space we could possibly find, we used. And it didn't patrol go out to 444 at that time and did
Correct.
that?
Yeah, out of our building out there at
building
444.
there.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Captain John Vick with the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. When it comes to your career, don't settle for good enough. Don't settle for ordinary. We won't either. Be different, be better, be exceptional. Start your future today at joinlso.com. So that kind of brings us up to present day, at least. That mess got cleaned up, and now here we are in 2023. Still have all of our divisions aside from, titles inspection is obviously off-site out at 46th and R. But we already talked about a couple of our satellite facilities, and those have kind of come and gone over the years. But we really have kind of, aside from titles, we only have a few others that we use kind of for satellite stuff. So we've got our Cherry Creek facility that's out there by our shops, and we do crash reconstruction in the bay out there and some vehicle storage and things like that.
And it was designed as sort of a backup.
Sure.
Should something catastrophic happen here, flood,
Yep.
a tornado, whatever the case may be, if this building were put out of commission, where could we function apart from here? So that's been identified as one spot. Our range down by Martell has been identified as another potential spot that we could operate out of.
Yeah, so the range is another satellite facility that we've had for a number of years. And I think I was looking back on here, it looks like it was in 1980 that we obtained at least our first known gun range down there.
That was formerly a county sand pit,
Okay.
and we leased that from Mr. Benzinger for a number of years until we purchased that land.
So it originally had, and maybe not even originally, but we had started with kind of a portable, maybe trailer house on there for the range house.
It was a donated mobile home that we tore the interior walls out of and made it into kind of a classroom and gun cleaning area and
It was a pretty sight.
mouse haven and whatever else you want to think about, you know.
So if I go back to the history book here, it says that in 2007, the mobile home was replaced with a new permanent structure, and Sheriff Wagner was able to negotiate the purchase of the land on which it was built. So talk to us about kind of how that process unfolded. We went from kind of some leased ground to not only ground that we owned, but you were also able to convert that to more of a permanent structure down there.
I think one of the quandaries that we had was that mobile home that was donated. You know, it had been used for now 10 or plus years, and it was really falling apart. Mm-hmm. So if we were going to put well over $100,000 in improvements on that property, and didn't own the land, was that being fiscally responsible? And we decided we'd really like to own the land so that if whatever improvements we make are going to carry on into the future. So we negotiated with Mr. Benzinger, and he agreed to sell us the land the range is on now and the driveway and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how that came about. And then we were able to purchase a pre-manufactured home that was designed as a large classroom and a gun cleaning room and restrooms, which we had never had before. Mm-hmm. And a
little kitchen area thing.
Little kitchen area, little refrigerator. So we moved that in 2007, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's been ever since. It's really served us well. We've added on and made a portion of that a firearms simulator room. So it's really been a good thing for us. Yeah,
I mean, I was just down there with our range master and some other instructors the other day. We were kind of concerned that there might be some more, kind of sizable investments we'd have to make to keep that up. But I was very happy actually with the shape that the building's been in, and really well taken care of by our people. So it's hopefully something that can continue to serve us for years to come. We don't use that as our primary range though anymore, because there's a new public safety training center facility. It was originally constructed by the police department,
right,
out by west of the Lincoln Airport. They were also kind of in the same boat of kind of outgrowing their range
they
facility.
Got forced out.
Okay.
They got booted, so they used our range for quite a while.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they were told they had to go.
Yep. So they constructed a new facility with multiple ranges. And in the last few years, we've been able to partner with them and kind of turn that into a joint venture of some leased ground out there from long-term lease from the airport authority.
Yeah, 50 years.
So that's kind of now our primary range facility, although we continue to maintain our backup and practice range down in the Martell area. And then we also have some substations that they're unstaffed. We don't have people don't just go there to make police reports or anything like that. But we do have some of those in the surrounding communities in Waverly and Hickman, where we've got contract deputies. And I think Jim Craig was maybe instrumental in helping get one set up in Panama.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Some of the fire barns and things like that. I know we've got some space for deputies to work on reports and things if they're not in their cars. But
in the day, it was important to have those
right.
Access to fire stations, access to city halls in whatever city or village we were in for telephone access. Either find a payphone or have those phones available in those little substations, and that's that was really a kind of a primary purpose of those.
Well, that, and you could put a computer in there because we didn't have computers in our cars. I think some of these younger guys and gals would be just totally lost.
We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers in our cars, so we could put a computer down there. We could have a phone for them, and they could do their business on their district.
We used our radios mainly because we had pre-dialed numbers, like for the tow company or for the office that you could dial up and call.
Yeah, I remember that on our old radio system that you would lock somebody in. You could private call them, or you had like you said, a dispatcher for the tow company or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah,
come a long way.
How times changed. Well, that kind of gets us up to speed on where we're at today. Where are we going in the future, Ben? Because I know that you've got some capital improvement projects on your list, and just like things have changed from the 1870s up through the 1970s, we're trying to at least strategically put LSO in a position that we can continue to have modern infrastructure all the way to 2070. So,
well, we can even start with our remodels that we have done. It was several years ago that we started back downstairs and did a whole remodel into our patrol lineup area, the courts division, and the criminal division.
Yep.
And so got that totally complete, then moved up to courts, did the front entrance.
Yeah, I mean, even though we're in the same building, it's hard
Right.
hard to think that it's been over 20 years already since
25.
Since we've been in this building. So just kind of time for to freshen some things up. But yes, the front door security area was never designed with that kind of 9/11 post 9/11 mentality.
Yeah, with the metal detectors and scanners and all those things. So it was.
It was, but it wasn't. It was. That area was designed for metal detectors. We knew when we designed this building that security for the courts was and the building was going to be a high priority, and so it was designed with metal detectors and X-ray machines in place. But the space was just not designed very optimally, and
especially for the number of people we were getting.
yeah,
The
we're
volume has
getting
certainly changed,
Half
yeah.
a million people a year through the front doors. Employees on a daily basis plus the public. So we really needed better flow of traffic through there, and we got that accomplished. And
Yep.
Yeah, Captain Whitty worked really hard on that. Did a very good job on that end. But that was a pain.
it was.
So now we've moved up and we've refreshed our lobby and our service desk area, along with the police department. So that was kind of our last remodel project.
Just about done with it.
That were just a couple punch list items left on there, but soon, I think actually this next coming week, the package will go out to bid for our main administrative office area. So that'll be the last, at least footprint of kind of our headquarters office to be remodeled as well.
Everything will be refreshed after that's done. And one thing I'd like to say is the Public Building Commission did the front, and we've been using FAC funds for the mass majority of the remodel here. So it is
Let's explain why that is. The Public Building Commission is an entity that owns buildings that are both city and county used. So this building is owned by the Public Building Commission. We pay rent for our space. They pay us back for security for the building. We pay for parking, et cetera. FAC, our forfeited assets, have helped pay for our remodels. So those areas that the Public Building Commission has not paid for, we have paid for those with forfeited assets, so it hasn't been taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
Sure. So that helps to offset some of what otherwise would be pretty costly ventures. And
and when you think about 24, 25 years in this building, it's not like your normal office building that's in operation 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. This building is in operation 24/7, 365 for 25 years.
Yep.
And if you look at that's about triple the use of a normal office building. This building has held up very well.
Yep.
And we had a little forced remodel there in 2005 with the flood, but for the most part, it's held up very well. And there's just some things now that we need to redo.
well, and that's 25 years is a lot of boot scuffs and a lot of duty belts bumping into things, and
That's another thing that people don't realize is, you get those scuff marks fairly easy with those on there. People forget they're a little wider than what they usually are.
well, without a doubt. Outside of the footprint of this office, I know we're also working on, you mentioned, Sheriff, identifying a backup site, and, our Cherry Creek facility certainly gives us some options and some flexibility, but it'd be a little bit of a MASH hospital.
It would be.
Working out of there.
Absolutely.
So.
It was when we were displaced by the flood, and we had our patrol division out there, and, if we had to move our day-to-day operations, if we had to move our handgun permits and sex offender registrations and some of those administrative functions that we perform up front here, should something happen to this building, we could do it. We'd have to be very creative.
Yeah. Well, Ben, that kind of takes us to our bigger picture plan for the Public Safety Training Center out by the range. So do you want to talk about some of our training building and maybe our vision for that a little bit?
Oh, certainly. And as you know, you've been a big part of this all the way through, John. But we went down to Georgetown, Texas, and did a tour of their facility. And what was interesting on that, their voters did a vote on if they were going to build that or not, because it was going to be taxpayer bond money, and they got it through, which doesn't always happen, as you can imagine. But with the fire department and the police department, I think, was the bigger sell on this. But a lot of this is what we're visioning is being able to have. We run out of classrooms, as you know, up here all the time, and we just don't have that enough space on that. And then we have some specialty equipment and specialty rooms that we would love to be able to build and have up and operational all the time. A mat room, a simulator room that we can do and have our people go out and train all the time. We also are looking at having a building that you are able to do simunitions in, do building clearing, being able to switch the rooms up, having a catwalk on it so the trainers can look down and watch what's happening. And, the big thing with that is it wouldn't just be for us, it'd be for, of course, Lincoln Police Department, but all the other surrounding agencies. We want one of our big goals here is to be a resource agency, and that building would help that. I think right at this point in time, everybody's concerned about what's going on in law enforcement, and this building would help train officers. Defunding us isn't the answer, because that's not going to help the issues that sometimes occur throughout the United States. People here are really lucky that law enforcement officers are really highly trained, and that's what this building is there to help continue that training throughout the years.
And I think they are highly trained, but I think if we're being completely transparent with the public, I think what they view as highly trained, we still need more, and there's not. I don't know what the average person on the street would think that the amount of training that we're getting if you asked them, but we're giving more than a lot of agencies are able to with at least a day of work per month minimum for some in-service.
Yes.
But even then, if you break that down, that's really less than 10% of the time that our deputies are at work during any given month.
Well, the thing is what are we all responsible for? Oh my gosh, what we get, we get called to everything. We have to be able to drive. We have to be able to do pursuits. We deal with mental health individuals. We deal with the neighborhood disturbances. I mean, there's
death investigations.
I mean, you can go on and on and on, and it's hard to get them the training they need. And some of these skills, if you don't use them all the time, deteriorate. Yep. And shooting's one of those. And we really don't have enough time to train, but we also have to have
the facilities to
do that. And you have to keep deputies on the streets answering calls for service for the public.
Yeah. So I think out of that training, facility, I think our goal is obviously to be able to provide more opportunities for that training and make it easier and more accessible for our people, so we can create those opportunities to make sure that we are getting those reps. We've got a lot of hard skills that we teach people, but there's a lot of soft skills too that we're trying to incorporate into training. De-escalation, crisis intervention. All of the things that have gone by a number of different names over the years, but they really take that scenario-based type of training to be able to stick because they're perishable skills.
Well, the one thing, too, with that is you could set up a training out there, and you could have a shift go out there while another shift is covering it, and then do 30 minutes to an hour of training with those and do that more often than just once a year for 8 hours.
because the facility's ready to accommodate it.
Ready to do that and be available.
Yep, absolutely. Sheriff, I mean, just looking, into the future, do you ever see a time, that we would have a satellite, patrol division or another one of those divisions? What are the, we just had Sheriff Hansen from Douglas County.
I was just thinking of Douglas County.
And, they've grown to the point where they do have to kind of split some of their stuff because they've got a courthouse that's in downtown Omaha, but they want their patrol division to be closer. What do you think about that? Is that ever what weighs into the calculus on those decisions?
I think if you look at Douglas County, their geographical makeup, their patrol area is north of Omaha to Washington County and to Dodge County on the west. So getting there from downtown Omaha would be difficult. Plus, real estate parking is an issue in city centers. We're a little bit better off here, I think, that we have, quite a large footprint of government-owned land around this building. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we'll ever get to that time. We'll move, one of our divisions out of here. Mm-hmm. That might come, and it might come just because the other divisions are growing and need that space. That might be a bigger motivator than where do we need to be.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky we were able to squeeze, I think, a couple more offices out of this most recent remodel, but this is pretty much going to tap out our space. Yep. So we're expanding to fit that growth, but you go 10 years down the road.
And we're centrally located within the county.
Yes.
So, once we get, a mile, once we get to the city limits, in a nice circle around the city, we're out in our patrol areas, in our area of jurisdiction. So that's another plus that we have that Douglas County may not have. So it's hard to tell.
And I think you spoke to the fact that, and having lived it before, that brings some organizational challenges too.
It does, just to make everybody feel like they're part of the organization, to let them know you care about them, to hold them accountable. All those kinds of things come into play when you don't have daily contact with your folks.
Yep. Chief, Sheriff, any other closing thoughts on facilities? I mean, I know we've got members of the public that listen to this. We've got current employees, even retirees that kind of want to listen in just to keep up on what's going on. So other closing thoughts about our facilities?
Just a reminder, back when we moved into this building, and we were the last one out of this building in 97 and the first one back in 99, in November of 1999. And then, and at the time, if you recall, we were preparing for Y2K. And so in addition to the design and all the infrastructure in this building, we had just a multitude of meetings going on about what was going to happen, if our communication systems went down, if Y2K was the disaster everybody said it was going to be, how were we going to continue to function? And having volunteers with ham radios on strategic corners that people could go to and request a law enforcement officer, and then they would radio to us. And I mean, it was really a 2-year process of a lot of meetings, and a lot of the computer folks really worked hard to get our computers to go from 1999 to 2000. It was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'd like to bring up 444 because we share that building with emergency management, and they got a part of the building, and we got the other part. And we've been working with them on trying to find another facility for them that's close and bigger, so that they can expand, and we can, because we're at our seams out there with our special equipment. Our accident bay that we have is used a lot for
overflow,
crime scene.
Storage and crime scene.
Crime scene vehicles. I don't know how many homicides the vehicles have been parked in there and gone through and done some of that.
That was designed for exactly that.
Yeah.
That purpose. It's a drive-through facility that you could drive a semi into and out of.
Yep.
And you can lock it and secure it. So if you have an evidentiary vehicle from a crash or from a homicide or from whatever, it can be put there, it's secured, and then processed in relative comfort,
Yep. Well, I guess the only thing that's going to stay the same is change, and we'll just have to continue to roll with the punches with facilities, and life goes on. Gosh, looking back, all the changes that have happened since our office came into being in the 1800s, and it'll just be interesting to see what the future holds. So.
Yeah, a lot of people come in and see our buildings and talk about it, and they're like, wow. So it's nice that we have good facilities and we keep it up. And, I think of the deputies and civilian staff take care of it because it is nice.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate the time today, guys. That's all the time we have for the 902 podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. Be sure to check us out as well on social media at LSO Nebraska, or send us an email, lso@lancaster.ne.gov. Thanks for listening. And yes, we do hire people as well. If you are so inclined, www.joinlso.com is where you can find more information about careers at the Sheriff's Office. Thanks for listening.